Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Cracking the Code with Robert G. Allen. Robert, I could not be more excited for what we lovingly internally call the Bobcast. It's so much fun to be with you and talk about all things mindset, all things residential, real estate, just real estate in general, right? I mean, you do so many wonderful things. And it got me thinking as we've been talking. And this week, I really want to talk about how we find great deals. Because I think everybody that's interested in investing in real estate really wants to know, how do I find that great deal? How do I not get taken for a ride, right, on the deal I'm about to do, right? And so give us just a little bit, Robert. How do we find those great deals? I mean, you say they're everywhere. Teach us a little bit about how to find those.
Well, let's start with common sense.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter if you've never bought a piece of real estate in your entire life. You probably lived in some real estate. You probably lived in an apartment or a house or a mobile home. Maybe a few years you were in the park living. Don't laugh. I have one of my most famous students lived in a park in Japan.
Holy
and
cow.
He got a copy of multiple streams of income from a used bookstore and started right out of the park up to multi-millions. But
Wow.
So I don't know wherever you're living right now, whether it's the park or the beautiful penthouse in someplace you're living on real estate. Real estate is the foundation of everything in our country. So generally speaking, when you're thinking about, or just thinking about common sense,
Okay.
You say to yourself, well, let's see, where do people go that need to sell their real estate, And so obviously they're going to go primarily to real estate agents because they advertise all over the place, and it gets to be the common thing that a real estate agent is going to be the primary way where you look. Unfortunately, they're also probably the worst place to go.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the worst. Why? Because they are handling both parties, the buyer and the seller, and yet they're being paid by the seller, and therefore they are not really representing you. They're representing the seller, and therefore they want to bring the seller the best price, the highest price, because that's how they got the listing.
Sure.
They went to the seller, and listings are hard to find and hard to get, so they're going to make all kinds of promises. I can list your home, I can get you the best kind of price possible. So they plant in that seller's mind expectations that are incorrect. And so I like to deal with for sale by owners, because those are the people who put signs on their front yard.
Yeah.
And we went into depth in another one of our podcasts about the 9 ways of finding highly motivated sellers.
Yep.
But it's back to common sense. Where would I look? Generally speaking, I would look for some kind of advertising, because generally somebody's going to advertise. They're either advertise with a sign on their lawn, they're going to advertise with an ad on the internet, they're going to advertise with a real estate agent. They're going to put themselves out there. So you're just now beginning to turn on your reticular activating system, as they call it.
A reticular activating system? What is that?
It's a book I read a long time ago, and all I remember is that once you literally magnetize your thinking,
Okay.
you start to see the world through different eyes.
Oh, okay.
And when you say to yourself, I'm looking for a highly motivated seller who's trying to sell a property that I can buy at a bargain price, now you start to see those kinds of things. Just like when you said, I want to buy a yellow Porsche, you start seeing yellow Porsches everywhere you look.
Sure.
So now we activate your reticular activating system. And now you out in the world, you start noticing things you had noticed before. They were right in front of your eyes. When you're driving down the freeway, on either side of the freeway, there are thousands of properties that you drive by every single day.
Yeah.
Commercial real estate, residential real estate, warehouses, storage units, all kinds of real estate out there. And so now you're starting to ask yourself, what percentage of these situations, these properties that I'm driving by every single day, what percentage are highly motivated? And the activating word for what you're looking for is somebody who is flexible, who is forced by reality to be flexible.
Sorry, I'm going to cut you off. Would you say that this is one of the most important hints that you're about to give us on how to find that highly motivated seller?
No. The most important hint is flexibility. Yes, that is.
Okay.
That is exactly right. Flexibility.
Okay.
And most sellers are not flexible. So they want their price, they want their terms. They want the highest price possible and all cash.
Yeah.
That's what the realtors told them is possible. And because of the hot real estate market and the mortgage game these days, it's fairly easy to get a mortgage. It's not as easy it was in 2008, 2009,
Right.
but it's still fairly easy for a fairly qualified person to get a fairly good mortgage. And so there are five ways of evaluating a highly motivated seller. We're going to talk about that in another podcast that we're going to do here shortly. But the bottom line is about finding the 9 ways of highly motivated sellers. Realtors, advertisements, going to banks and finding people who are finding the department that is real estate owned. So these are things they're ordinary things. What I'm trying to get to is you read any book on real estate, and they're going to talk about some version of these 9 or 10 ways of finding highly motivated sellers.
Yeah.
And the problem is, especially when real estate's hot, is everybody is going to the ordinary ways. And therefore, it's just flooding the market with people looking in ordinary ways. Therefore, you are in competition with everybody.
With like millions of people at any given time.
Totally. So you have to ask yourself the question, do I really want to compete with everybody? Now, most people are cheap, so they don't want to spend any money on advertising. So they're going to go to a real estate agent. They're going to pay that agent a commission, and from that commission, they will invest money in the advertising. That's a nice way to do it if you're trying to sell.
Well, I mean, because like as a seller, right, you've already assumed, like, listen, you've already resigned to the fact that I have to pay an agent, right? You already know you're going to lose at least 3%, right? Like, it is what it is, right?
Exactly.
And that's one of those things that, like, you can avoid, right?
And just knowing that, by the way, that's one of the nothing down techniques. We won't go into that right now, but there are 50 nothing down techniques, and one of them is how you use an agent in a very positive win-win way to access their commission money. So we won't go there right now. What we're talking about now is you're looking at the world, and there are ordinary ways of looking, but everybody's looking there.
Yeah.
So you want to be. Riches are in the niches, as they say. Riches are in the niche. So that means I got to find niches where people aren't looking, where the competition is much, much lower. And advertising, you doing your advertising, definitely attracts people to you. Definitely does.
So can I ask you one quick question? Because I love that saying, riches are in the niches. Can you give us like 2 to 3 examples of like where those niches might lie for people?
Well, one of the niches is the database of everybody who owns real estate in the United States. Wouldn't it be nice if you knew?
It'd be amazing.
Who owns every piece of real estate in the United States?
For
well,
sure.
In your city, in your county, if you're in the United States, you'll find a county courthouse that lists every single tax owner and where the tax notices are sent.
Wow.
So literally, I have access to every single owner.
And anybody does.
Everybody does. Yeah,
wow.
It's free. You can go in there. But the problem is, most of us won't do that kind of work. So what I'm trying to say is that if you want to get into the niches, there's usually a barrier to the niches, and the barrier is work, and it's time, and it's effort, and it's persistence. And that barrier is usually too high for the ordinary real estate investor. They think, well, I'm going to make some money here. Everybody seems to be making money. Whatever I buy is going to go up in value. Remember, this happened in 2008.
Yeah.
And that's why trillions of dollars were lost, because of the same mistake that people are making now 10 years later, 12 years later. Because prices, you're not going to pay retail for anything ever.
Yeah.
You have to go wholesale. Even if things are hot in your city, but you can go to the places where people very rarely go.
Yeah.
Very few people are going to show up at the foreclosure sale.
Okay.
You say, well, I don't have the money to buy the real estate. You don't need the money. You need the knowledge on what these people are doing at the foreclosure sale. And usually at your county, there's going to be a foreclosure sale that'll have a couple of dozen people, not a couple of thousand people or 20,000 people. There are probably 20,000 investors in your city right now. And maybe 2,000, 1,000 of them will be investing their own money to go out and try to find a highly motivated seller. And maybe 24 of them will be at the sale for the foreclosure sale.
So would you say that the foreclosure homes or the properties they're doing are generally really trashed, or can you find a pretty good deal at a foreclosure?
Oh, you absolutely can find great deals there. In fact, most of the properties that end up at a foreclosure sale go back to the bank. Did you know that?
I did not know
like
that.
90% of all the foreclosures go back to the bank. Now, remember, we're looking for highly motivated sellers. But when the bank forecloses on a property, they become a highly motivated seller.
They don't want that asset.
They don't want that asset.
Yeah.
They want the income and the interest that comes from on a mortgage on that asset, but they don't want that asset. It's not in their business plan, and therefore they're going to turn it over to their real estate owned department to get rid of it, and just enough to pay off their costs. So usually there's a deal in there somewhere. That's a common misconception that foreclosures are, properties that people have trashed and they're destroyed and their values have gone down further from the truth. So here's some unorthodox or creative. Remember, my book, Nothing Down, this one right here that made me very, very famous, Nothing Down, How to Buy Real Estate with Little or No Money Down. It's about creative real estate. And traditional real estate is almost opposed to creative real estate. So traditional real estate is your traditional real estate agent. It's a traditional mortgage or mortgage company or a bank. Traditionally, that's the way they've gamed the system.
Yeah.
So the traditional people in that system win. And you are an outsider to that system. You don't want to play their game. Their game is not a way you win. And they're going to tell you, you go to a real estate agent and you say, I'm looking to buy a property with nothing down. I read this book by Robert Allen. What are they going to do? Remember,
They're going to scoff.
They are in the traditional scheme.
Yeah.
And you're coming in from the outside with a creative option. First of all, they've never seen it or they rarely have seen it.
Yeah.
And second of all, they don't want you to bring a creative deal to their buyer.
Right.
Like, I'd like to trade you my motorhome for your apartment, building,
Yeah.
Something really wild and crazy. And so the realtor is going to say no to you right from the very beginning. So just remember that. You just expect it.
Yeah.
But however, when you go into finding the realtor, you have to find a realtor who is an investor, him or herself. So she understands or he understands exactly how they find good deals. And unfortunately, when the real estate listings come through their office, through the listing service, through the MLS, they are going to grab those deals first. Mm-hmm. They're going to right off the cream them right off the top. So you have to be at a different place in the flow of the leads. You can't be at the bottom of the river where hoping that a lead will flow down the river to you. You have to go upstream into the river to find more creative ways of finding that highly motivated seller.
Okay, so how do we go upstream?
You find those little niches that nobody's going into. So okay. I've explained a couple of them to you. The database of people who have property, where is that database? Well, you could go to, if you're a real estate agent or if you have a listing agent working with you, they have listed the database of every property that's for sale on the multiple listing service. So that's a good source. But remember, it's probably been messed up a little bit. It's been picked over, and it's been the sellers have been trained the wrong way. You want them to be trained by reality.
Sure.
The reality, as I said in a previous podcast, the best thing about real estate, it's illiquid. Mm-hmm. And the worst thing about real estate, it's illiquid.
Yep.
I mean, you can't sell it when you really want to. And therefore, if you need the cash, you need reality to wake you up to say, I need the cash. I can't wait for the realtor to try to sell it for me. I gotta reach out and find somebody who's trying to buy it, and that's you. When I was getting started in my career, I graduated in the 1/3 of my business class in the MBA that made the top 2/3 possible. In other words, I was the worst. I wasn't very good at numbers. The best class I took in my MBA was a book on real estate appraisal.
Okay.
And that class made me an absolute fortune. Everything else, I don't even remember what I learned. What I learned from that process is that you have to realize that in the MBA class, there's the top class students. There's the president. There's the best of the best.
Right.
And when they go out in the world to try to find a job, they're going to get $150,000, for right out of the gate with no experience. So the best of the best is looking for a summertime job. So I may have shared this with you in a previous session, but it's part of the creative ways of looking for deals. Some of us just don't have the time to look for great deals. So I went to my MBA class and I said, I'm offering an internship for the summer.
Oh.
Anybody interested in an internship? You're going to
While
stay
you're
right?
in the MBA program yourself.
Yeah, no, this is after my
Okay,
MBA.
after
Got
yours,
my
okay.
MBA, graduated in the 1/10 of my class that made the 90% possible above me. I was terrible. I was horrible. Squeaked by with the skin of my teeth. But I knew there were some great thinkers in there. So a few years later, I went back to that same class, and the class of that year, and I said, I'm offering an internship. You stay right here in our city, and I will coach you and guide you. And I explained to them how we're going to be looking for deals.
Okay.
I explained to them the 9 ways of highly motivated sellers, how you find them, ads and looking and for sale signs and all that general basic stuff. And then I told them a few creative ways. And then I said, if anybody's interested, the salary is $0. This is an internship.
Yeah.
$0. However, if you find a good deal, I'll share with you, and I think the percentage was like 20% of the profit.
Wow.
I'll use my money. I'll use my credit. You'll use your time. You'll use your energy. You find a great deal and bring it to me. If I buy it and close on it and everything closes like I said it will, you get 20% of that.
It's a pretty dang good
And
deal.
so the number one student in the class said, I'm in. I got
Yeah.
number one for nothing. Now that's a creative way. What I did is I taught him what I've been teaching you guys, how he could do that. Now this is available to anybody listening here, because there are students in high schools and universities within a walking distance for most of you right now. And they're business classes. You can offer an internship, teach them how to look for the deals and let them go do the hard work. And it is hard work. It takes time and effort.
Yeah.
So Rex was my guy.
Okay.
And he brings me an incredible deal. It's a deal I never would have found, but somehow or other, in all the ways of looking, he finds a 12-unit apartment building in a fantastic location. And how he found it was just literally knocking on doors, just going to owners and finding out where the owners lived and just doing some really in-depth research that nobody's willing to do. They want to do it the easy way. There isn't an easy way.
Yeah.
Because there's an easy way, everybody's fighting for that easy way.
Sure.
He found that the owners were there that Saturday, and they were having an argument, as they had often, arguing about what they should do with their apartment. They had actually added a 13th unit to it with some of the extra storage space they had, and they were having a fight. And Rex shows up and says, you guys interested in selling? Now, before he showed up, they would never have sold. You wouldn't have found them in any of the other ways.
Right.
But Rex shows up, rings the doorbell, finds them in the office. They're having an argument. They said, yes, take this off our hand. We want to get rid of this thing as fast as possible.
Wow.
Rex calls me immediately. I immediately show up an hour or so later, and I'm talking to the owners, and I say, what do you need? I don't use the word, what do you want? I said,
Yeah.
what do you need? And they gave me a price that I knew was low. The reason that they were low is because they were having an argument. They just really wanted to get rid of it. They wanted to get rid of this partnership. And so I said, fine, I'll pay that to you. Here's a $1,000 check for opening up escrow. And I write them the check and tell them not to cash it, of course, until I get the escrow opened.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I've just tied up a beautiful property in a fantastic location with $1,000. I think it was actually $100 I gave him, but
wow.
let's say it was $1,000 that is not cashable yet. In other words, there's not enough money in my bank account to have that check clear yet.
Yeah.
So now I have tied up an excellent piece of real estate with none of my own money, $0, no credit, none of my credit, no my cash flow, no my collateral, none of the financial resources that most people think you need. But now I have a bargain property that I now can go to my network, and I can say, found a good deal. You want it? I have 10 other people on my list I'm going to call today. If you want this one, I would say this is the best thing for you to do. So I flipped it. Now, back a few years ago, we didn't call it flipping. We just called it remarketing to somebody else. I don't know what it was. But anyway, what I'm trying to teach in this segment of the podcast is that there are ordinary ways, and then there are extraordinary ways. There are creative ways. And the riches are in the niches, where you go deep in that niche and you go to more lengths that most ordinary people are not willing to go. So that's the conversation we're having today.
So one of the interesting things, a term you hear a lot in real estate when you're investing, right, is a bird dog. Would you consider Rex a bird dog?
Yes.
What is a bird dog? To explain to people what bird dogging means.
A bird dog is a person who looks for deals, who maybe doesn't have the money, but flips those deals to people who do have the money. I call those people angels. And so if you don't have the money, you're a bird dog.
Okay.
And the mistake that most people make about being a bird dog is they realize, I can't invest in real estate myself. I need to go clean up my credit. I need to go save my down payment. I need to go improve my net worth statement. I know, and that's the wrong way to do it. Don't do that. Go find the deal first. Be a bird dog first.
Be a bird dog first.
And then tie it up. Flip it to somebody else, let them make the majority of the profit. You make a little profit and gain the experience from it till eventually you have enough of your own cash or credit for you to do it yourself.
Yeah. So we're obviously talking to Robert Allen on Cracking the Code. We're about to wrap up, but before we go, I would love for you to tell me and just guesstimate, because I know people everywhere are looking for the great deal, the good deal, the amazing deal, right? How many of those really exist at any given time? Like, is this a market that is just too saturated wherever you're at, you can't do it? Give people some hope. Leave us on a high note.
And you can send me to any city, as I've said, take away my wallet, and in 72 hours, I'll buy an excellent piece of real estate, regardless of the hotness of any market or the coldness of any market. There are always highly motivated sellers. For example, the story I just told you, that Rex found me that deal, it was a great real estate market. It's just that the sellers had a personal problem.
Yes.
So you don't want real estate problems. You want personal problems, and they flare up all the time. There are divorces happening in hot real estate markets. There are, crises of all health issues, death, all kinds of things are happening every single moment in any single market. So usually it's between 1% and 3% generally. If the market is bad, that number goes to 10% or 15%. But 1% to 3% in any market at any time, you'll always find a good deal if you're willing to go deep.
Okay. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways I've taken from this entire conversation is investing is possible for anybody, but you have to be willing to do the work. This is not going to be something that, maybe some people, yes, get something dropped in their lap, but to be a successful real estate investor and to buy properties with nothing down and to do all these different things we're talking about, it does require work.
Yeah,
that's something you can't avoid.
Most people are not willing to do it. That's why they're poor.
Then that's why you can make millions doing it, right? All right, Robert, thank you for joining us on another episode of Cracking the Code with Robert G. Allen. We'll talk to you soon.